this video, I'm going to show you how to configure a leak map in EIGRP. A leak map is needed when you're doing summarization in EIGRP, but you still want to advertise some of the prefixes that make up the summary. How summarization works in EIGRP is that you advertise the summary route to the peer, but you don't advertise the prefixes that make up the summary. Those routes are going to get suppressed. So to explain that, I have this topology built out in GNS3. We have router 1, and router 1 is configured with these loopbacks. Right now, router 1 is advertising these loopbacks down to router 2 through EIGRP. Router 2 is then configured to do summarization on this interface going down to router 4, and the summary address is 10.0.0.0/8. What router 2 is going to do is he's going to advertise this summary route down to router 4, but any prefix that makes up this summary is not going to get advertised. They're going to get suppressed. So what that means is that any prefix that's an EIGRP prefix that starts with 10 is going to get suppressed. So all of these /32s are not going to get advertised down to router 4. So he's not going to see those /32s. He's only going to see the /8. So we can verify this. Let's first come over to router 2. Let's do a show IP route EIGRP. You see that we're learning all of the loopbacks coming from router 1. So that's what we expect. But if we come over to router 4 and we do a show IP route EIGRP, notice we only see a /8 summary. Okay, and that's because if I come back over to router 2 and I do a show run interface gig 1/0, here's our summary address right here. So router 2 is only advertising the summary. He's not advertising these /32s. Since they make up the summary, they're getting suppressed. So if we come back over to router 4, we do a show IP EIGRP topology. Notice that none of the /32s show up in the topology table. So we're not learning none of the /32s. We're only learning the /8 summary. So this is where a leak map is going to come into play. If for some reason we want to advertise one or more of these /32s, like let's just say that we want to advertise this /32 right here. All we have to do is create a leak map, which is going to tell router 2 when you're advertising the summary, you can suppress the prefixes, but don't suppress this one. Since this one is not going to get suppressed based on the leak map, it means that when we come back over to router 4, it should show up in the EIGRP topology table. Now the configuration for the leak map is simple. I actually have it typed up here in Notepad. We're going to do it step by step. So if you want to do this along with me, you can, or if you want to write this down and do it on your own, you can. But these are the 3 steps that you're going to follow to create this leak map. First thing you're going to do is create a prefix list. You can also accomplish this with an ACL, but I prefer using prefix lists. So to do that, you say IP prefix list. That should say list. I spelled it wrong. So IP prefix list. You give it a name. You're going to tell it what sequence number this is in the prefix list. You say permit, and then you put the actual prefix. So to demonstrate that, let's come back over to router 2. Let's go into configuration mode. Let's type IP prefix list. We're just going to call it test. Right, that's just the name we're going to give it to keep it simple. We're going to say that this is sequence number 5. We're going to say permit, and then this is the prefix that we want to not suppress. And then we hit enter. Right, so now our prefix list is created. Next, we're going to create a route map with a permit clause, and we're going to match the prefix list inside of the route map. So we say route map, we give it a name, we say permit, and then we put the sequence number. We then say match IP address, prefix list, and then we put the name of the prefix list that we created in step 1. So let's come back over to router 2. We're going to say route map, We're going to call this one test as well. Permit 10. We're then going to match the IP address prefix list test. Okay, this is the prefix list that we just created in step 1 right here. All right. So we got our prefix list created. We got our route map created. Now all we got to do is step 3, apply the route map as a leak map on the summary address. So you go to the interface level where you have the summary address configured, or where you're trying to do summarization. You type IP summary address, EIGRP, you put your AS number, you put the network ID and the mask. So these two make up the actual summary route. And then you use the keyword leak map, and then you put the name of the route map that you created in step 2. Let's come back over to router 2. We're going to go to interface gig 1/0. We're going to say IP summary address. We're going to say EIGRP 100. We're going to put the summary address of 10.0.0.0, a mask of a /8, and then we're going to put the keyword leak map, and then we put the name of the route map that we created, which is test. Okay, notice we get a log message saying that the neighbor had to resync because summary was configured. So now if we come over to router 4, what we should see is that we're still learning this summary, this /8, but we should also be learning this /32 right here, because router 2 is not going to suppress it because we configured a leak map. So we come over to router 4, we hit our up arrow key. Notice the /32 now appears. Okay, all of the other /32s are still being suppressed because they're not matching the leak map. They're not matching the leak map, so they're not being unsuppressed. Only this one is being unsuppressed. That's why it's still getting advertised in addition to the summary. So we do a show IP route. Notice the /32 is appearing in our routing table. And if you ever want to add another route to the leak map so that it doesn't get suppressed, all you have to do is come back over to where you're doing the summarization at, which is router 2 in our example, and just update the prefix list that you created. So for example, maybe I want to start leaking this /32. All I have to do is go to my prefix list, or update my prefix list, which is test. I'm going to give it a different sequence number, so I'm not going to use sequence number 5 because it's already in use. I just use sequence number 10. I'm going to say permit, and then we're going to put this IP address right here, this prefix. Now with EIGRP, if you update this, what you have to do is delete this. So you got to get rid of the summary and reapply it in order for it to take effect. So let's go to interface gig 1/0. Let's get rid of that, and then let's reapply it. And then if we come over to router 4 and we do a show IP route, now we're seeing that /32. So that's really the whole purpose of a leak map. You're doing summarization. We know that every prefix that makes up that summary is going to get suppressed. So you're not going to advertise these specifics. You're only going to advertise the summary. But if you want to leak those specifics and still advertise them, that's where the leak map is going to come into play. So just to kind of show you the final configuration, let's do a show run pipe include route map, pipe prefix, pipe leak. So the first step was to create the prefix list. Okay, we did that right here. The second step was to create the route map where you're matching the prefix list. Okay, we did that right here. And the third step was to go under the interface, right? So let me actually do interface as well. So you go under the interface, you then apply the summary address command but you use the keyword leak map, and then you use the name of the route map that you created. Okay, this is what's going to tell the router to not suppress those prefixes. And ladies and gentlemen, that is how you configure a leak map in EIGRP.